Yeah, there we are. Hello today. Just so you guys know up front, I've injured my tongue or my back of my throat or something like that. And so if you notice that today I'm speaking a bit slower, a little bit more precisely, that's what's happening. I have deceived many a person today into believing that I am a wise man with many a wise thing to say. It is a rude deception. A crude ruse that I play upon people. So, hopefully it will simply augment the nature of these videos, because it means that I can speak so slowly that I can choose my words more voraciously. Hold on, I'm going to switch my hands. I'm just coming from the grocery store. I do worry that it makes me sound a bit like an old man, though. We're doing a lot of phone work at work, and so I'm speaking to people on the other line, and I can tell that when I'm talking to them like this, many of them are like, whoa, what a fine gentleman I'm speaking to today. It's making me think that I should begin speaking this way all of the time. Simply leisurely dealing out my information and advice to people. Yes, it makes me feel like a man of letters, pondering sonorously on the nature of our very existence. I guess that is sort of what I am doing. It's just now, because of an injury, I'm forced to slow things down. It's right on the back, so I can't just waggle my tongue like a fierce-willed young'un. What is banging around in my head today? Oh geez, not much of anything really. I'm consistently blown away at the dedication and desire to do good that is displayed by those who work around me. That Sobeys apparently is extending its quote-unquote hero pay to its workers during this continued lockdown, to those who are affected by this lockdown and those who are affected by that pandemic. If I were these, what are called frontline workers, if I were these workers, I would be organizing a strike. I, at the very least, am able to be sheltered from the worst of it in my field. We can close the doors and say to customers, you are not coming in here. It does mean that we are pushing through many customers through a system that was not intended for them, but it's working for the most part. And people, once they the strangest, I shouldn't say strangest thing, but definitely something that gets me to thinking is, it says on our website that place your order through the website and you can come pick it up at the store within the hour, or within an hour. We should give you a confirmation. Now, this is information that was doled out to the public before the existence of this pandemic, and certainly was not intended to be used within the confines of a lockdown. As you can well imagine, what with Christmas around the corner, people are doing a lot of their shopping online, and a lot of their and consistently throughout the day, I'm told the website says it should only take an hour. And it really does make me realize that this is all it takes for people to move forward with their lives, sort of blissfully unaware, and creating an expectation for themselves is the tiniest shred of information. And as long as that information is put forth and gives them hope, then it isn't until they are confronted with disaster that they are willing to alter and change their views. That I have said to many people today, and many of my staff have said today, yes, typically it is an hour, but there's a pandemic and a lockdown on. And a system that used to field 20 orders in a day is now being used to field between 300 to 400 orders in a day. It takes a good deal of time to chew through them and get everything just so that we don't misplace anything or there isn't any chicanery that occurs between you hitting that button on your screen and us delivering it to your hands at our doorstep. And once people are confronted with that, there's a degree of understanding that comes with that. But there is a certain percentage, without a doubt, who remain indignant from the beginning to the end of the process, who clearly take this tiny little shred of information that says to them, oh, it'll be ready in an hour. So says a picture on a website taken a year ago, bereft of all context. And because this conforms to how they want to view the world, that I should be able to get things as I want them, as your site has said, that this in turn gives them permission to be jerks. Now, I feel I've come up with a pretty decent analogy for how this is. That there are two types of people, really. There are people who think that they are living in a multiplayer game, where every person, yea, every being they meet, is a player character, which is to say that every individual they meet is playing a game as they are playing it, and are due a certain level of respect for that purpose. Then there are people who believe that they are playing a single-player game, that they are the player in a single-player experience, and that everyone they meet is simply an NPC, a non-player character, who exists explicitly and solely to inform or stand against the player. In either way, the non-player characters exist only for the pleasure of the player. And should such a non-player character confront, offend, or affront the player, then the player has permission to slay them. I meet these people all of the time. They're the types of people who come into a store not wearing a mask, where a person like myself is standing, and then I would say, as the employee, excuse me, may you put on your mask? And they would say, but there's no one here. They see me as a non-player character. I exist only until my dialogue options are exhausted. They will never attempt to plunder any deeper. And perhaps if they ask the right question, or if they act the correct way, they can unlock hidden dialogue options, but only insofar as they pertain to the item of their desire. I am a non-player character to these people. My existence only extends so far as my usefulness. I think there's an awful lot of that going on. I think that lots and lots of people think that way and work that way. We've given the name Karen, right, has taken on kind of a special meaning in this society for that reason. That Karen is a Karen is that lady with the special kind of haircut, the tight coif that has the sharp bottom along the hairline, that is going to is definitely going to want to speak to the manager and wants impeccable service, and if she doesn't get it, then she's going to complain. It's unfortunate that the name Karen has been used for this, because every Karen I've ever met in my life has been an absolute delight. I work with a Karen, and she's a wonderful woman. Very caring, works hard, cares about her work, cares about her family. I'd never believe in my life that she would just go, I want to speak to the manager, and cut a line or anything like that. And I've known Karens throughout school. I knew one Karen who was, just young and wild and spicy, but not of that quality. And then another who was a worker and very tired most of the time. But a very kind woman. So I don't quite know why Karen has been the name that gets used for this. But that's how it works, isn't it? So something enters our lexicon. It's just an etymology that occurs, and people just grab hold of it, and it rings true somehow. I think it's just because it is a kind of like my name is John, right? And so they end up using, it's like a very common, non-offensive name. And so it gets used for all kinds of strange and odd things, right? John is used for, oh, well, we found a body, John Doe. Oh, well, he's a man going to see a prostitute, he's a John. Oh, he's, we need to call this toilet something, it's called the John. It's a very just common, not dignified name by any stretch. Although, just a commoner's name. I might as well tell this story. I feel like this is only going to be on YouTube anyhow. Anytime I get talking about the nature of my own name, John, I always like to talk about Prince John, who we know from the Robin Hood stories. And I do think I would like to tell the story of Prince John, but done with a more sympathetic eye. Because I do feel that John is one of those unfortunate figures in history who simply ends up the butt of a meaningful propaganda campaign. Let me explain. John was the brother of King Richard. We remember King Richard as King Richard the Lionhearted, who went to fight in the Crusades. At the time, he was a very popular figure, Richard, and he left to go to the Crusades for the glory of God and England. The trouble is that Richard was not very good at crusading and was continuously captured. I don't rightly remember how often he was captured, but he was captured on more than one occasion. Now, if you are an opposing army in the medieval era, you don't simply just kill the king of a nation. You ransom him for money, because if you kill the king, then you get nothing. You've just gotten the pleasure of killing the king. But if you ransom him, then you get some money. And money is good. It helps you buy things. Money can be exchanged for goods and services. Thank you, Homer Simpson. And so John, the king's brother, who's been left as regent and in charge of the nation in Richard's absence, must provide coin to pay for Richard's ransom. And so he taxes the population, because that's where the coin is. Not very popular. Here's the rub for John. He cannot tell the nation, certainly not the peasants, that the reason he is taxing them is to raise coin to pay for a ransom for King Richard, the hero of God's holy crusade. Certainly the populace would take this as an indictment against Richard, that he is captured and that he loses in battle. Certainly, word of Richard's failures would sully his prestige and honor amongst the populace, and so it must be kept secret from the populace. It cannot be revealed that John is attempting to bail out his brother from his own failures in a ludicrous and ridiculous war that they proclaim to be holy, when really all it is an excuse to ransack and loot some other nation they don't like. And so John gains this poor reputation amongst the populace, and when Richard returns, he makes a very large show of banishing Prince John, and John, of course, completely goes along with this. That he is ridiculed and mocked and becomes one of the great villains in history, Prince John. Robin Hood, Robin of Locksley, robbed from the rich to give to the poor, becomes this great hero and a foil to the sniveling Prince John, who has always been portrayed as, in the Disney's Robin Hood, he was a snivelly, cowardly lion without a mane. In in oh goodness, in the 90s there was a version of Robin Hood that was done by Kevin Costner. In Kevin Costner's version, it was played by Alan Rickman, who played him just as sort of a spoiled drunkard, someone who had no gratitude for the throne. Power hungry is a consistent theme with Prince John. And yet, when you realize his motivations for what he is doing, when you see how he acts, and how the nobility treats him, John is treated very well. He leaves and just goes to take over a small property, a small barony, which he rules kindly and with no difficulty on his own, because everything he did was for the love of his brother. I actually think that Prince John ends up being quite a victim of his circumstances, that history has been extraordinarily unkind to him as a historical figure due to the popularity of Robin of Locksley and the inherent moral truth that the story of Robin Hood carries with it, that that taxing poor people for wealth and prestige is wrong, that we should ensure that the poor are treated with respect and dignity, and that causing them needless suffering and misery means that the population does have permission to rob them in order to equalize the playing field, right? This is a story that rings with truth, especially today, while there is active looting going on in the United States, and people pretend as though the looters are the ones who are in the wrong, when if you watch a story like Robin Hood, you are always on the side of the looters. You are always on the side of the looters when you watch Robin Hood. But it also carries with it, knowing now what you know about Prince John's position and his position to his brother Richard, because the ending of the Robin Hood story always ends with the return of King Richard, the banishment of John, or in some cases the death of John, which is a reach, but the banishment of John, and Richard bringing justice back to the people, that the problem was always Prince John. Now, of course, this carries with it an element. This is what the ruling class is attempting to do with Donald Trump to an extent, to say that the problem was not the fascist structure that exists in the United States, that all of the current ruling class within the Senate and the Congress and the presidency and those with corporate power operate within. Certainly that's not the problem. The problem was this single individual named Donald Trump. And if we simply get rid of Donald Trump, if we simply get rid of Prince John, then things will go back to the way they were, where the king gets to maintain his position after being captured several times in one of the most illegitimate wars in history. And the telling of the Prince John story with this in mind is something that I would truly love to see. That Prince John is put in this unfortunate bind, but at the end of the day has solidarity with his brother and with his class. His solidarity And this solidarity is rewarded by the class. Jon ends up with lands. He ends up with power, right? He ends up still a ruler. He's not executed. He's not thrown in prison. He's not stripped of title, even. He remains a prince, for goodness sakes. He simply is relocated away from the people he was, in many ways, forced to inflict suffering upon for the benefit of his brother. It's a very, it's a story I feel that really does matter to today's society. It's one I think about often, especially when I think about sort of the nature of my own name and the commonality of my own name. I often think of Prince Jon and how humans are only motivated by three things, truly. Vengeance, love, and power. And Jon's story, I believe, is one of a deep brotherly love, but also one of a man who wants to maintain his own position in the society. That he would not stand up against the nobility and say, no, Richard was captured in a foolish war, and risk being punished or exiled from his own community for doing so. No, he'll inflict as much suffering as he needs to upon the populace. I just don't believe that he did so gleefully, as is portrayed. I think he did so knowing and understanding that that came with a heavy burden. But it was a burden he was willing to carry if it meant the safety of his brother. Yeah, it has many beautiful elements. Anyway, this one has been fairly ponderous, I think, for a few reasons. Not to say that I'm not typically ponderous. But, as always, I wish you all well. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're finding love and laughing, and good things can happen out of nowhere. They can. I feel in this last week I've had many good things happen to me out of nowhere that just defy expectation and are inexplicable. So, continue following whatever instinct you have within you. Say hello to your neighbors. Give someone a high five. Drink a beer. Smoke a J. Love each other. Good luck out there, guys. Have fun, above all. Have fun.